So today I'm going to set up the reaction of morpholine with t-butylacetoacetate. Morpholine from Sigma Aldrich, t-butylacetoacetate from Aldrich. It's basically the same company, different label. And so I have those two chemicals, and I have my molecular sieves, and I'm going to be getting out a hot plate and metal blocks. So for the hot reaction, we need to get this heated up to about 170. So I'm going to get that set up and heating while I'm setting up the cold reaction, just to save a little time. So we'll turn that on. And to get to 170, I'll probably have to heat this, more like 250. So I'm going to set it between the 200 and the 250 setting. Just kind of set that aside. And we'll stick one of these 260-degree thermometers with the blue alcohol in there to monitor the temperature of that while that sits. So we're going to dispense the t-butylacetoacetate with one of these Thermo Lab System fin pipettes. It's an automatic repeating pipetter, and this is a 25 milliliter tip. So if we read our little chart here, for a 25 milliliter tip, if we want 2,000 microliters or 2 milliliters, we need to have the wheel position in 4, and so that wheel position is set at a setting of 4. So this is ready to deliver 2 milliliters of the t-butylacetoacetate. I may have to pour that into a beaker, since I don't think this is going to reach the level of the liquid. And then the morpholine we're going to be dispensing with a 1 milliliter syringe. So I'll grab a nice new syringe and needle from my basket. So that's ready for the morpholine. And the molecular sieves, we just measure out 3 of these. And we want a 5 milliliter conical vial. We're going to need 2 of those, one for each reaction, so I'll grab both of those while we're in there. And then we're going to need our various assemblies. And we need a Claisen adapter for later, and a condenser for the hot reaction. We also need a thermometer adapter with an O-ring. That one's got an O-ring in it, so it's good. And a sidearm adapter. And we'll need a 3 milliliter conical vial, because that's what we're going to be collecting our liquid product in. So get a nice clean, that one looks pretty clean. So that should be all the necessary glassware. So for the cold reaction, it's very simple. We're just going to put 3 molecular sieves in there. And then we're going to measure our 2 liquids in and seal it up with a nice septum and store it in the freezer in this box. So we want the Teflon layer, which is the thinner kind of white layer. You can see that when I dig my finger in there, it creases and kind of stays there. This silicone side doesn't. So Teflon side towards product. And I'm going to need, for the hot reaction, a spin vane. So I'll grab that out. Pick the one that looks cleaner. And we want the pointy end down so that the little bar is horizontal. So I'm going to take this over to the balance and actually get a mass of the molecular sieves. Not that we really need it, but since we can, we might as well. Just letting that start up. Balance had apparently been turned off. So we're going to insert that conical vial and tear. just going to dump a few sieves into my hand. Spill a bunch. There's 2. 3 good-sized sieves in there. And you read about what these sieves are for, so they're basically zeolites. They're a mixture of aluminosilicate compounds. So that's 0.030, that's 30 milligrams of molecular sieve in there. Those 3 pellets, about 10 milligrams per pellet. And they have, the molecular sieves are available in various pore sizes, and they will absorb different molecules based on the pore size. So these 3A sieves are for absorbing relatively small molecules, like things like ammonia and water. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this t-butylacetoacetate into a beaker. And fill my pipette. And I always like to squirt one out before actually dispensing it. So we're just going to put 2 milliliters of that in there. It won't read exactly 2 because there are sieves in there, but it should be close. And then while I have this, I'm going to add 2 milliliters to the other vial. That's the one that's going to be being used for the hot reaction, and I'll just stick that in there so it doesn't fall over. And I can empty the rest of the t-butylacetoacetate. Set that aside, and since that beaker was clean, I'm just going to pour it back in. Normally you wouldn't do that, but I trust it. So we should be done with that. We set that aside, and that beaker can be set aside to be cleaned later. Now we just need to get the Morpholine, and we want 1.05 milliliters. Which is going to be a little bit difficult to measure in a 1 milliliter syringe, so we'll just take a little bit more than the total. But we want Morpholine to be the limiting reagent. We'll just fill that all the way up. And I'll just go, right, so this is 0.9, 0.9. So 1.05 would be, yeah, about that much above the total. That looks like it's about right. And I could just stick that through the septum, but I don't really want the septum to have a hole in it. So I'm just going to squirt that in and running it down the side. Make sure it all goes in. And I'll sheath that. I'm going to use that again, of course, for the other reaction. And we'll seal that up tight. I don't want to seal it too tight, and I'm going to wrap some parafilm around that to make sure that it stays sealed. And we'll just shake that up a few times to get it thoroughly mixed. And go grab a piece of parafilm. seal that up. Don't think it's likely to leak, but just to make sure. So that's our cold reaction, and I'll put a label on it so we know what it is. I've actually got this set up in my lab notebook. I'm on page 46, and this is notebook 10. So I'm going to call this DCL-10-46A. And we'll tape that on there. It's in the freezer, condensation will cause that to fall off. So that's going to be shaken, and that'll go in the freezer. And I'll just set that aside, and I'll stick that in the freezer when I stick the remaining material in. So now we're ready to set up our other assembly. And what we need, it's kind of dirty. If I can get one that's a little cleaner. Yeah, it looks better. So what we need is a Claisen adapter on top of our vial with a thermometer adapter. Actually, I guess we're not using a thermometer adapter. We're going to have a septum in there. Thermometer adapters for the top. So I need a septum. See if there's a, yeah, there's a 24 septum, or 14 rather. So there's going to be a septum in there. That's how we'll add the Morpholine. And we put the septum in the straight neck so that we can get that added directly into the vial. And then on top we're going to connect this and that, and then the thermometer adapter on there so we can measure the temperature. So I'm going to need 3 plus the one down there, 4 of these taps. And 4 O-rings. Stick a cap on there and then roll the O-ring to prevent the cap from coming off. And we're going to do the same on the other joints. It doesn't want to get in there. Push that in with a spatula. This guy is getting connected up here, and our thermometer adapter, and our condenser. And I'll want that to fill completely, so I want to have those pointing up. That's cracked. I'm going to get a condenser that's not cracked. That's better, and it's got the drip tip down, which is nice. So there's my assembly. Put those in the back. And we're sitting at about 158, so we're getting close to the temperature we need to be at. And we're going to need a clamp so we can clamp that to the ring stand. So I'll add this nice clamp here, and I'm going to need a clamp also to attach the other. For some reason there are a bunch of missing clamps, so I may have to use a 3-jaw clamp for that. That's okay. So I'm going to clamp it here, I think. Assuming that it doesn't quite fit. I was thinking I could get my 3-jaw clamp around the condenser. Yeah, that'll fit close enough. Remember, these go on with the V-shaped part on the ring stand so that it can slide on that flat part. And this will be sticking out nicely so that it can reach out to my 3mm conical vial. 3mm little conical vial will connect there, so that can go under the tip. I'll have to adjust those, of course, once I get the other vial attached. So this has its spin vane. I'm going to attach that. So all we need to do now is put the condenser hoses on there. And I want to get this fairly close to the sink.